Jack Elam finally breaks silence on James Garner. Jack Elam was born William Scott Elam on November 13th, 1920 in Ashland, Arizona, a small railroad town whose rugged surroundings mirrored the kind of characters he would later portray so convincingly. Tragedy struck early in his life when his father died while Jack was still a child, forcing his mother to raise him largely on her own. This early exposure to hardship instilled in Elam a sense of resilience and independence that would define both his personal life and professional career. At the age of 3, Elam suffered a serious injury to his left eye during a childhood accident. The damage left the eye permanently misaligned, a feature that would later become his most recognizable and ironically most valuable asset in Hollywood. At a time when leading men were expected to be handsome and polished, Elam's appearance placed him firmly outside conventional norms. Rather than allowing this to limit him, he ultimately embraced it, transforming what might have been seen as a liability into the foundation of his screen persona. Before acting, Elam led a life far removed from show business. He studied accounting and worked as a bookkeeper, even holding a position with the Standard Oil Company during World War II. He served in the United States Navy, gaining discipline and life experience that would later inform the gritty realism of his performances. Acting was not an early ambition, but rather a path found almost by accident, one that would soon prove to be his true calling. Jack Elam entered the film industry in the late 1940s, initially taking smile-and-credit roles that placed him on the fringes of the screen. His unusual appearance quickly caught the attention of casting directors looking for actors who could convincingly portray villains, drifters, outlaws, and morally ambiguous figures. In an era dominated by westerns and crime films, Elam found steady work playing men who lived outside the law, or at least outside respectability. His breakthrough came in films such as She Said No, 1949, and Rawhide Deed, 1951, where his unsettling gaze and unpredictable energy made him stand out even in brief appearances. Unlike many character actors who faded into the background, Eli Lam had a way of commanding attention. Audiences might not remember the hero's name, but they remembered the man with the crooked eye who looked like he might snap at any moment. The 1950s and 1960s marked the height of Jack Elam's career, particularly in the Western genre. Westerns demanded authenticity, and Elam delivered it in abundance. He did not play romanticized villains. His characters were often dirty, desperate, cowardly, or cruel men shaped by harsh landscapes and harsher lives. Elam appeared in dozens off-Western films and television series, including Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Riflemen Have Gun, Will Travel, and Rawhide. Each appearance reinforced his reputation as one of Hollywood's most reliable bad men. Yet beneath the menace, Eli Lam often infused his roles with a strange humanity, suggesting that his characters were as much victims of circumstance as they were perpetrators of violence. One of his most memorable performances came in Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, where he appeared alongside Charles Bronson and Henry Fonda. Though his role was brief, it was unforgettable, demonstrating Elam's rare ability to make a lasting impression with minimal screen time. His presence contributed to the film's atmosphere of tension and moral decay, hallmarks of Leon's revisionist Western style. While Jack Elam was best known for playing villains, his career was not limited to two-dimensional roles. As he grew older, filmmakers increasingly recognized his talent for comedy. Elam possessed impeccable timing and a willingness to poke fun at his own image, traits that allowed him to transition seamlessly into humorous roles. Films such as Support Your Local Sheriff, 1969, and Support Your Local Gunfighter, 1971, showcased Elam's comedic instincts. By exaggerating the very traits that once made him frightening, he became a source of laughter rather than fear. This evolution demonstrated his range as an actor and his understanding of audience expectations. Jack Elam's personal life, though far less publicized than his unforgettable screen persona, was marked by deep attachment, loss, and resilience, qualities that quietly shaped the man behind the famously misaligned eyes. His 2 marriages, separated by tragedy and followed by renewal, offer a revealing glimpse into Elam's private world and the emotional undercurrents that ran alongside his long Hollywood career. Elam's first marriage was to Jean Louise Hadgert, whom he wed in 1937, well before he became a familiar face in American cinema. At the time, Elam was still forging his identity as an adult, Working various jobs and navigating uncertainties of early adulthood during a period shaped by the lingering effects of the Great Depression. Their marriage began long before fame entered the picture, which suggests a bond grounded not in celebrity or ambition, but in companionship and shared perseverance. Gene was with Elam during his formative years when he was still far removed from the rugged outlaws and eccentric villains that would later define his career. For nearly 24 years, Jean Louise Hadgett remained Elam's wife and life partner. This long marriage spanned the most important transitional phase of his life, from struggling obscurity to professional recognition. As Elam gradually found steady work in Hollywood, particularly in westerns and character-driven films, Gene was a constant presence behind the scenes, providing stability and emotional grounding. In an industry known for fractured relationships and fleeting romances, their decadescal-long marriage stood as a quiet testament to loyalty and endurance. While Elam cultivated a screen image that often leaned toward menace, unpredictability, or comicality, his domestic life during these years appears to have been far more conventional and rooted. That sense of stability came to a devastating end on January 24, 1961, when Jean Louise Hadgett died from colon cancer. Her death marked a profound emotional rupture in Elam's life. After more than 2 decades together, losing his wife was not merely the loss of a partner, but the loss of a shared history that stretched back to his earliest adult years. At this point in his life, Elam was already well established as a character actor, but professional success offered little insulation from personal grief. The death of Gene closed a long chapter of constancy and companionship, leaving Elam to face the future alone after nearly a quarter-century of marriage. Remarkably, and perhaps tellingly, Elam did not remain alone for long. 7 months later, in August 1961, he married Margaret M. Jennison. The relatively short interval between Gene's death and his second marriage suggests not indifference to his loss, but rather a deep-seated need for connection and emotional partnership. For a man who had spent most of his adult life as a husband, solitude may have felt unnatural or unbearable. His decision to marry so soon speaks to a desire for continuity, companionship, and emotional anchoring after profound upheaval. Margaret M. Jennison became Elam's second wife at a time when his career was flourishing. The 1960s and 1970s swoon proved to be some of the most productive years of professional life, with Elam appearing in a steady stream of films and television shows, often stealing scenes with his distinctive presence and offbeat charisma. Margaret thus entered his life during a period of visibility and momentum, supporting him as he navigated the demands of fame, aging, and an ever-changing entertainment industry. While less is publicly documented about their private relationship, the marriage endured for the remainder of Elam's life, suggesting a bond that provided lasting comfort and stability. For decades, Jack Elam remained largely quiet about his relationship with James Garner, even as fans and historians speculated about the dynamic between two of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Elam, famous for his unforgettable crooked eye, growly voice, and mastery of sinister Western villains, was never one to chase the spotlight off-screen. Yet late in life, he finally chose to reflect openly on Garner, not with bitterness or bravado, but with surprising warmth, honesty, and respect. Elam acknowledged that James Garner represented a very different kind of fleeting man than himself. Jimmy had that rare ease about him. Elam once said he cold walk into a room, smiled a half-smile of his, and everyone trusted him immediately. According to Elam, Garner's appeal was not manufactured by studios or carefully crafted by publicists. It was instinctive. What you saw on screen was what you got in real life, Elam explained. There was no act with him. Though Elam often portrayed hardened outlaws and dangerous antagonists, he admired Garner's ability project decency, without seeming weak. That's harder than playing a villain, Elam admitted. Anyone can scowl and threaten. But Jimmy made kindness look strong, and that takes real confidence. Elam emphasized that Garner never relied on ego or intimidation to assert himself on set. He didn't have to throw his weight around. People listened because they wanted to, not because they were afraid. Elam also addressed rumors of tension between character actors and leading men during Hollywood's golden and transitional years. While competition was unavoidable, Elam rejected the idea that jealousy defined his view of Garner. I knew my place and Jimmy knew his. Elam said plainly, weren't running the same race. It carried the story, and I helped give it teeth. He took pride in the idea that strong villains made heroes more memorable. If the bad guy isn't believable, the hero doesn't shine, he explained. What struck Elam most, however, was Garner's quiet integrity, particularly in how he treated others. He remembered names, Elam recalled, crew members, extras, people who usually get overlooked. That tells you everything you need to know about a man. Elam contrasted this behavior with insecurity he saw in other stars. Some actors need to remind you they're important. Jimmy never did. As he reflected on Garner's career, Elam praised his versatility, citing Garner's effortless transitions between television and film. Most guys get stuck in one lane, Elam said. Jimmy made it look natural, whether he was cracking jokes or standing his ground. Elam believed Garner's success endured because audiences sense authenticity. People trust what feels real.